Hello, baby. Tonight, let's gently drift into a magical world, far away beyond the stars and softly glowing clouds, to a place called the Night Garden. This is where our story begins. It's a tale about a gentle flower fairy named Leora, who lives in a hidden garden that only blooms under the moonlight. Her job is to care for the sleepy flowers and whisper dreams into the stars. But one night, something changes in the garden, and a mystery begins to bloom. This is the story of the flower fairy of the night garden. Close your eyes and snuggle in, little one. Let's begin. Once upon a time, nestled deep in the heart of the silverwood forest, where the leaves shimmered like tiny bells and the breeze hummed lullabies, there was a secret garden that no one ever found during the day. It was hidden beneath a curtain of mist, surrounded by tall whispering trees, and only revealed itself when the moon rose high and the stars blinked awake. This garden was called the Night Garden, and it was the softest, gentlest place in all the land. The flowers there didn't wake with the sun. Oh no, they waited patiently until the world had hushed, the owls began their song, and children everywhere had closed their sleepy eyes. In the center of this magical garden lived a fairy named Leora. She was no bigger than a daisy petal, with gossamer wings that shimmered like morning dew. Her hair was woven from moonlight, and her dress was made of petals from the rarest dream blossoms. Leora's voice was a gentle hum, like the soft sound of a lullaby sung from far away. Each night, when the sky turned a velvet blue and the stars began their slow dance, Leora fluttered from flower to flower, touching each bloom gently with her fingertips. Her touch made the petals glow softly, lighting up the garden like a sea of twinkling dreams. She whispered to the blossoms, telling them stories of kindness, friendship, and hope so they could share those dreams with the world. One evening, just as the moon was rising behind the tallest trees, Leora felt something strange. The air was still, too still, and the garden didn't hum as it usually did. The stars twinkled less brightly, and the flowers, oh dear, the flowers were still asleep. Leora fluttered to her favorite flower, a soft purple moon lily named Mira. Mira always woke first and greeted Leora with a soft giggle. But tonight, Mira was curled tightly, her petals closed like a shell, and no matter how gently Leora sang, she did not stir. Whispered Leora, resting on a nearby leaf. This is most unusual. She drifted upward, floating just beneath the moon, and called out to the night birds, who were her good friends. Little Owlin, she called sweetly, have you seen anything strange this evening? The smallest owl in the forest, with feathers like ink and eyes like polished buttons, swooped down and perched on a silver branch nearby. Oh, Flower Fairy, said Owlin softly, something is missing tonight. The dream mist has not arrived. Leora's heart fluttered. The dream mist? She echoed. But it always comes with the moonlight. Owlin nodded solemnly. Tonight, the stars say it has been taken. Leora's wings shivered with a quiet worry. The dream mist was what allowed the night garden to bloom and glow. Without it, the flowers could not wake, and the dreams would not be carried to sleeping children around the world. She looked out across the forest, which stretched in every direction like a dark, sleepy sea. Somewhere out beyond the trees, the dream mist had vanished. I must find it, Leora whispered to herself, more bravely than she felt. The flowers need it. The children need it. And so, with a flick of her glowing wings, Leora set off into the velvet shadows, leaving behind the quiet night garden. Her journey had begun. She fluttered past the tall foxgloves and over the silver mushroom ring. The trees whispered her name as she flew by, their leaves sighing in soft, worried tones. They too could feel the strange hush that had fallen over the night. High above her, the moon followed, casting a gentle light to guide her way. Leora held a tiny lantern made from a curled star petal, its glow soft and warm. She traveled over sleepy streams that sang lullabies, and through groves where fireflies danced in slow spirals like dreams being spun. As she neared the edge of the forest, she heard a sound, soft like weeping. Following it gently, she came upon a cluster of weeping willows whose branches hung low like tired eyelids. And beneath them, nestled in a bed of moss, was a creature Leora had never seen before. It was small, smaller even than Leora, with wings that shimmered like pearls and eyes that glowed like fireflies in the dark. It sobbed quietly, and its tears sparkled as they fell onto the moss. Hello, little one, Leora said kindly, landing gently beside the creature. "Why are you crying in the night?" The tiny creature looked up with wide eyes. "I didn't mean to," it hiccuped. "I just wanted to see what dreams were made of. I didn't know it would vanish. I didn't know it was so important." Leora's heart softened. "What did you take, dear one?" The creature sniffled. "The dream mist. I only touched it, and it followed me. But now it won't go back." Leora's wings drooped slightly, but her voice stayed calm. "Can you show me where it is now?" The creature nodded, and with a flutter of its pearl wings, led Leora deeper into the trees, into a part of the forest where the shadows were so deep they almost seemed to hum. And there, caught in a web of silver light, was the dream mist, swirling gently, lost and far from home. Leora reached out her hands, and the mist recognized her touch. It swirled around her fingers like a kitten curling into a lap, ready to return to the night garden. The little creature looked up hopefully. "Can it go back?" "Yes," Leora said with a smile. "With a little kindness, everything can find its way home." She took the mist gently in her arms, cradling it like a baby bird, and began the long journey back, with the pearl-winged creature fluttering quietly beside her, and far behind them the forest began to hum once more, just a little. The journey back to the night garden was gentle and quiet, like a lullaby sung beneath a sleepy sky. Leora flew carefully, the dream mist nestled warmly in her arms. It pulsed with a soft, silvery light, as if happy to be found again. Beside her, the little pearl-winged creature flitted quietly, its eyes wide with wonder and a touch of worry. "Will the flowers forgive me?" it asked in a voice as light as a breeze through feathers. Leora looked down with a kind smile. "The flowers are gentle-hearted. They sleep with forgiveness in their roots. They will welcome you, just as I have." The creature's wings quivered with relief. Soon, the silverwood trees began to part, and the misty veil that hid the night garden shimmered into view. As Leora approached, the garden stirred. Though still sleepy, the blossoms sensed her return. A faint glow began to ripple through the petals, like stars blinking on one by one in a twilight sky. She fluttered down to the garden's heart, where the moonlight pooled gently in a ring of dew-drenched grass. There she released the dream mist into the air. It swirled upward with joy, twirling and dancing like a ribbon in the wind, and then spread gently across the entire garden. The flowers began to wake. Mira, the purple moon lily, yawned and stretched her petals wide. She blinked her dewy eyes and smiled sleepily. "Oh, Leora," she murmured, "I had such a strange dream. I was lost in the stars, but now I feel warm again." One by one, the other blossoms joined in, sunbloom bells, sleepy poppies, giggle daisies, and hush roses, all opening with soft sighs and gentle shimmers. The night garden breathed once more. The little pearl-winged creature watched from the edge of the dew ring, quiet and still. Leora turned to her new friend and beckoned softly. "Come closer. They will not harm you." Nervously, the creature stepped into the garden. A hush rose near the path opened her petals wider and offered a bed of softness. The creature sat, and for the first time since the night began, it smiled. "I'm sorry for taking the mist," it said again. I thought it was beautiful. I didn't understand it was a gift." Leora floated down beside the hush rose and folded her legs beneath her. "Many things are beautiful," she said gently, "but when we take them without asking, we sometimes cause others to hurt. Now you understand. That's what matters." The little creature nodded slowly. "Will you teach me about the dreams? How they work? How they grow in the flowers?" Leora looked up to the moon, now full and glowing like a cradle of light. "Yes," she said softly, "but you must promise to be gentle. Dreams are tender, like the first breath of a sleeping child." "I promise," whispered the creature, placing a hand over its small heart. So from that night on, Leora became a teacher as well as a caretaker. She called the pearl-winged creature Lumi, which in the old tongue of fairies meant a soft light in the dark. Lumi learned quickly, though always with care. Each night, as the flowers bloomed and the dream mist swirled across the petals, Leora showed Lumi how to read the glow of a hush rose, how to listen to the whisper of a giggle daisy, and how to feel the silent songs the moon lilies sang. But one night, as the garden bloomed brighter than ever, a shadow appeared on the edge of the misty veil. It was soft at first, like a smudge in a dream, but Leora noticed. Her wings paused mid-flutter, and she tilted her head. "Did you see that?" she whispered to Lumi. Lumi squinted into the mist. There's something out there. Something watching. Leora floated quietly to the edge of the garden, her heart beating like a soft drum. The flowers hushed. Even the breeze seemed to hold its breath. Then, just beyond the mist, a figure stepped forward. It was tall and wrapped in a cloak woven from twilight shadows. Its face was hidden beneath a hood, but its presence was calm, not frightening, more curious than cruel. Leora hovered gently. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady but kind. The figure lifted its hood slightly, revealing eyes like old starlight, tired but kind. "I am the Watcher of Forgotten Dreams," it said, "and I've come to find the missing ones." Leora blinked. "Missing ones?" The Watcher nodded. "Long ago, many dreams slipped through the cracks of time and were lost in the hush between night and dawn. I have wandered, searching for them. Tonight, your garden sang so sweetly, I thought perhaps they had returned." Leora's wings fluttered thoughtfully. "We grow new dreams here," she said gently. "But perhaps, if we listen closely, we may find the ones you lost too." The Watcher stepped into the garden, and the flowers did not recoil. Instead, they leaned toward him, curious and welcoming. A soft hum rose, and Mira the moon lily whispered, "I remember you from a dream long ago." The Watcher smiled faintly. "Yes, little bloom, you once held the dream of a child who wished to speak to the stars." "That child grew up," Mira said with a sigh, "but the dream stayed." Leora looked up. Maybe the forgotten dreams never truly vanish. Maybe they become seeds. And with that, she reached into the soil and gently touched the roots of the flowers. A soft light began to pulse. All around the garden, from beneath the petals, little wisps of light began to rise. Old dreams, long tucked away, now stirring. Some were small and flickering, like the hope of a lost toy found again. Others were bright and bold, like the wish to fly across the sky. The Watcher bowed his head. "You have given me hope, Flower Fairy. These dreams may yet bloom again." Leora smiled warmly. "Then stay. Help us tend them." And so the Watcher remained, becoming part of the garden's quiet magic. With Leora, Lumi, and the flowers, they watched over the dreams, both new and forgotten, making sure every night held a whisper of wonder for those who sleep. The moon was high and round, casting its gentle silver glow across the leaves and petals of the night garden. With the dream mist returned, and the Watcher of Forgotten Dreams now among them, a deeper hush settled over the blossoms, one filled with peace and purpose. The garden had grown not only brighter, but wiser, as if it remembered something it had long forgotten. Each night, the flowers bloomed earlier, and their colors grew richer. Soft pinks that shimmered like dawn's blush, blues that glowed like twilight streams, and purples deep as lullabies. The garden had become a sanctuary, not only for dreams, but for those who had lost them. Leora spent her evenings guiding the mist, dancing among the petals, and whispering soft wishes into the stars. But now, she also had help. Lumi, with his curious pearl wings, had grown more confident. He knew how to speak to the giggle daisies, coax open the sleepy poppies, and gently carry glowing dewdrops to the waiting hush roses. The Watcher, too, had found his place. Though he rarely spoke, he sat beneath the old dream willow at the garden's edge and listened to the soft songs the dreams sang. Every so often, he would gently collect a forgotten dream wisp and tuck it into a pouch woven from stardust and time. He never took them far, just kept them safe until the right moment came to plant them again. One night, as the moon waltzed through the sky, Leora noticed something curious. A hush rose near the heart of the garden had not bloomed. Its petals were curled tightly, not in sleep, but in something deeper. She knelt beside it and touched the stem. A small shiver traveled through her fingers. "What troubles you, little one?" she whispered. The hush rose did not answer. Leora turned to Lumi. "She's holding something too tightly." Lumi fluttered down beside her. "A dream too heavy?" "Maybe," Leora murmured, "or a dream too afraid to be seen." Together they called the Watcher. He came slowly, his cloak trailing shadows like ripples in still water. When he saw the hush rose, his eyes softened. "She carries an old dream, one that was never spoken aloud." "Can we help her?" Lumi asked. The Watcher knelt. "Only if we listen with our hearts." So they did. Leora placed her hand over the bloom, Lumi rested beside the roots, and the Watcher closed his eyes. And slowly, from the closed petals, a soft glow began to rise. Not bright, not bold, but trembling, like a candle caught in a breeze. A voice, quiet and far away, spoke from the flower. I once dreamed of being seen. The words echoed gently in the stillness. I was small, too quiet, I was always overlooked, so I buried the dream where no one could find it. Tears shimmered in Leora's eyes. But we see you now. The hush rose opened a little, her glow steadying. Lumi reached out gently. Yumi, can we help your dream grow? Yes, the flower whispered, if it's not too late. It's never too late, the watcher said with calm certainty. That night, they stayed by the hush rose's side. Leora sang the softest lullaby. Lumi brought stardrops to bathe the petals, and the watcher guarded the dream. And by the time the first breeze of dawn whispered through the trees, the hush rose bloomed fully, its petals wide and glowing with the courage of a dream finally seen. The other flowers leaned toward her, offering soft rustles of welcome. From then on, a new kind of magic stirred in the night garden, one not just of blooming dreams, but of healing ones. Flowers that had once glowed faintly now pulsed with a stronger light. The soil felt richer, the air warmer, as if the garden itself had sighed in relief. Word began to spread across the wind. The forest spoke in whispers, the owls carried songs, and even the stars sent messages in twinkles. Come, bring your forgotten dreams to the night garden. And slowly, new visitors arrived. First came the mothkin, fluttering silently in veils of soft dust. They brought with them dreams collected from twilight meadows, dreams of children who wanted to be brave, of old ones who missed the stars, of songs never sung. They nestled in the crooks of moon lilies and hummed soft stories through the night. Then came the dew spirits, delicate and shy, trailing silvery water from the sky's edge. They brought dreams wrapped in rainbows, the kind that faded too quickly in the light. They danced on petals and left behind shimmering droplets filled with laughter and longing. Each visitor added to the garden's glow, each dream another star in the soft, endless sky. And every evening, as the moon rose like a guardian above them, Leora would gather the blooms and whisper, "Tonight, we send dreams not just to those who wait, but to those who need to remember." With Lumi at her side and the watcher nearby, they became a trio of light, the caretaker, the learner, and the guardian of dreams. One evening, as the garden shimmered brighter than ever, Leora looked out beyond the misty veil and felt a new tug in her heart. "Something is calling," she said. Lumi fluttered to her side. "From beyond the forest?" Leora nodded. "Farther still, a dream not born in the garden, but in the world of waking children." The watcher stepped beside them. Sometimes, a dream grows so strong it sends its roots across the skies. If you follow it, you may find the one who needs it most. Leora hesitated, glancing back at her blossoms. "Can the garden stay blooming without me?" "You taught us how to listen," Lumi said. "We'll care for it until you return." Leora's wings shimmered softly in the moonlight. She turned toward the horizon, where the stars blinked a little brighter, and took a deep breath. And with the gentlest flutter of her wings, she rose into the sky, carrying with her a dream that longed to be delivered. One child somewhere had wished so hard that the night garden had heard, and Leora, the flower fairy, was on her way to find them. High above the sleeping forest, Leora flew, her wings catching the soft shimmer of moonlight as she followed the whisper of the dream. It floated through the air like a delicate thread, invisible to most, but glowing faintly to her, a golden strand of hope stretching across the sky. She passed over lakes still as mirrors, over mountains tucked beneath snowy quilts, and valleys where only the night winds stirred. The stars above twinkled in encouragement, and every so often, a breeze would carry a hint of laughter or a gentle sigh, guiding her onward. The dream was calling from far away, and Leora followed it with care, feeling it pulse warmly in her heart. It wasn't loud or desperate. It was soft and steady, like a wish whispered every night before sleep. And beneath that wish there was a longing, a quiet, tender ache that made Leora's wings flutter a little faster. After what felt like hours wrapped in silence and stars, she arrived above a small village nestled at the edge of a wide field. The houses were tidy and warm, their windows glowing softly from bedtime lanterns. The scent of wood smoke and lavender drifted through the air, and lullabies hummed from open windows. But one house stood darker than the rest. It wasn't empty. Leora could feel a heartbeat inside, but the windows were drawn tight, the curtains heavy, and the silence within deeper than any she'd felt that night. The dream thread led straight to that house. With a gentle flutter, She floated to the window and peered through a tiny gap. Inside was a small room, cozy and neat. Toys were lined on a shelf, books sat quietly on a bedside table, and on the bed lay a little boy, curled tightly beneath his blanket, wide awake though his eyes were tired. His name, Leora learned from the whispers of the stars, was Theo. Theo was about 6, with soft brown hair and a button nose. His eyes were fixed on the ceiling, not blinking, not moving. But in his heart, the dream glowed like a candle refusing to go out. "I wish someone would hear me," he had whispered each night. "I wish someone would know I'm still trying to smile." Leora pressed her hand to the glass. The dream he held wasn't of toys or flying or adventures. It was a wish for comfort, for someone to understand, someone to sit quietly beside him and say, "I see you." She fluttered through the tiniest crack in the window, as soft as breath. The air inside was warm but quiet, wrapped in a hush too heavy for such a small room. She drifted to his pillow and sat beside him, her glow barely lighting the edge of the blanket. Theo didn't move, but his eyes flicked ever so slightly toward the shimmer. Leora leaned close and whispered, "Hello, Theo." His eyes widened just a little. "Can you see me?" she asked gently. He gave the tiniest nod. "I heard your dream," she said, her voice like the breeze that rocks the cradle. "It reached the night garden all the way through the stars." Theo blinked. "You came for me?" "I did," Leora replied. "Because your dream was brave, not loud but steady, like a light in the dark." Theo's lip trembled. "I don't know how to make it go away. The sadness." Leora nodded slowly. "Sometimes we don't need to chase it away. Sometimes we just need to sit with it and remind it we are not alone." A tear slipped down Theo's cheek. Leora held out her hands, and from the folds of her petal dress, she drew a single glowing seed. "This is a dream seed," she whispered. "It's very small and very strong. I brought it from the heart of the garden." She placed it gently on his pillow. "It will grow slowly," she continued, "whenever you feel seen or safe or loved, even just a little. It will bloom inside you, and one day it will help you smile without trying so hard." Theo stared at the tiny glowing seed. "Will you come back?" "I will always be near," she promised, "and so will others. Watch for the flowers, even in small places. They bloom where dreams begin." Theo closed his eyes, just a little, and for the first time in many nights, his breath grew slower. Leora stayed until his chest rose and fell in steady rhythm, until his fingers unclenched from the blanket and his brow smoothed into peace. Then, with a gentle touch to his forehead and a hum as soft as moonlight, she rose into the air and fluttered toward the window. Outside, the stars welcomed her back with a warm sigh. She glanced back at the house. The curtains swayed slightly, and though no one else saw, the tiniest flower bud had begun to bloom in a pot on Theo's windowsill. A bloom of soft silver petals that shimmered with hope. Leora turned to the sky once more. Her wings glowed brighter now, carrying with them the strength of Theo's quiet courage. The dream seed he kept would grow slowly, gently, and perhaps one day he would come to the garden himself. And now the wind whispered of another dream, faint and far away, a song half remembered, a heart waiting for laughter. Leora smiled and followed the thread. The wind cradled Leora as she soared higher, carrying her above moonlit meadows and slumbering hills. With Theo's dream seed now planted, the threads of his hope glowed behind her, like a trail of soft starlight. But ahead, a new whisper tugged gently on her senses, a melody so quiet it seemed woven into the folds of night itself. She followed it through fields dotted with sleepy sheep, past creeks that murmured lullabies, and into the arms of a quiet mountain range where time felt slower, as if even the rocks were dozing beneath soft moss blankets. Nestled in the shadow of the tallest peak stood a small cottage, wrapped in ivy and silence. One window glowed faintly with candlelight, flickering like a heartbeat in the dark. That was where the melody came from, not a song sung aloud, but a memory of music, held deep within a dream. Leora drifted toward it and peered gently inside. A little girl sat on the floor of her room, her arms wrapped around a stuffed bear that had clearly been hugged through many years of dreams and tears. Her name, whispered through the leaves, was Elsie. She was older than Theo, perhaps 8, but her heart felt small tonight. Her hair fell in soft curls around her face, and her eyes were puffy from quiet crying. In front of her lay a music box, the kind with a tiny dancer inside, but it wasn't turning. It sat still and silent, like a memory frozen in time. Leora hovered at the window, her glow brushing against the glass. She listened closely, and soon she felt it, the dream Elsie had hidden away, pressed between the notes of a lullaby she could no longer hear. "I used to dance," the dream whispered, "but no one watches anymore. I used to twirl for Mama. Now the music has stopped." Leora's heart ached. She slipped quietly through the crack of the window, her wings trailing silver light. She floated down to the music box and rested gently beside it. Elsie didn't notice her at first, her head tucked into her bear's fur, her tears soaking into its threadbare ears. Leora reached out and touched the music box with the tip of her finger. The tiny dancer inside shivered once, then slowly, ever so slowly, turned her head. Just a fraction, just enough to catch the moonlight. The softest note escaped from within, barely more than a sigh. Elsie's head lifted slightly. Her eyes, red and tired, blinked at the music box. Another note followed, then another. The dancer turned just a little more. Elsie held her breath. That's when she saw it, a shimmer, a flutter of light, hovering just above the music box. Leora smiled, glowing softly. "Hello, Elsie," she whispered. "I've come to listen." Elsie stared wide-eyed. Are you real?" "As real as your dream," Leora replied. Elsie wiped her cheek. "I didn't think anyone remembered." "I did," Leora said gently. "And so did the music." She placed both hands on the music box and began to hum, not a song from the world, but one from the night garden, full of blossoms and stars, petals and moonbeams. The notes wove through the air like silk, twirling around the little girl and her bear. The dancer inside the box began to move, slowly, gracefully. Her tiny arms lifted, her dress swirled, and a light shimmered beneath her tiny feet. Elsie gasped softly. "She's dancing." "She never forgot how," said Leora. "She just needed someone to believe again." Elsie touched the music box gently. "Mama used to play this for me every night. I would dance until I fell asleep." "And you still can," Leora said. "The music is still inside you." "But Mama's not here," Elsie whispered. "She's in every song you remember," Leora said, "and in every dream you dare to dance again." Elsie's eyes shimmered, but this time no tears fell. She stood slowly, her bear still in her arms, and took a single step across the floor. The music from the box grew stronger, soft, delicate, like a lullaby carried by wind chimes. Elsie closed her eyes and swayed gently, her feet moving in a small, careful circle. Leora rose with her, spinning slowly in the air, her wings casting soft patterns of light on the walls. Around them, the shadows melted into quiet joy. One twirl, one breath, one dream reborn. When the song ended, Elsie sat down gently, her cheeks warm and her smile faint but true. "Will you come back?" she asked. Leora nodded. "Whenever you dance with your heart." The flower fairy floated to the windowsill. A single soft breeze blew into the room, and as it passed the music box, a tiny flower bloomed beside the dancer, pale pink, glowing faintly. Elsie watched it for a long time after Leora had gone. She didn't know it yet, but that bloom would stay. It would twinkle gently each night, a sign that someone remembered, that the music had never truly stopped. And high above, Leora soared once more, her wings alight with the joy of a dream rekindled. Tonight, the wind sang louder. It carried her onward to another quiet heart, another secret wish. Because as long as dreams were whispered into the stars, the flower fairy would always follow. Beyond the sleepy village where Elsie danced with her music box once more, the world stretched out in soft, dark waves of moonlit land and starlit sky. Leora flew higher now, her wings brushing against clouds so light they drifted like dreams themselves. She was quiet, thoughtful, carrying the warmth of Elsie's joy close to her heart. The world below turned slowly, each tiny light in a window a whisper, a hope, a dream being born. Then, from the north, came a different feeling. It wasn't a cry, nor a song, nor a deep ache. It was silence, a perfect, heavy silence, so quiet it felt like the wind itself had forgotten how to breathe. Leora paused, hovering gently in the sky. She closed her eyes and listened with her heart. And then she heard it. A dream, small and nearly invisible. Not flickering like Theo's hope or Elsie's memory, but still and distant like a star at the very edge of night. With a soft nod, Leora turned northward, following the faintest pulse of feeling, an echo of a wish that had almost forgotten it was a wish at all. She passed above forests blanketed in frost, through valleys where foxes curled in warm dens, and over hills crowned with snow that shimmered blue under the moon. In the heart of this winter world sat a quiet town, covered in white, sleeping soundly beneath a sky full of snowflakes. But even here, where rooftops wore snowy caps and trees stood still and silver, one house stood colder than the rest. It was a tall, narrow home with shutters drawn tight and icicles lining the eaves like frozen tears. The chimney no longer smoked, no candle glowed inside. But from within, the quiet dream still pulsed, steady, faint, waiting. Leora landed softly on the snowy windowsill and peered inside. There sat a boy, tall for his age, perhaps 9 or 10. He sat at the edge of his bed, dressed in a thick sweater with sleeves too long, staring out into the night. His name came to Leora like a sigh from the snow, Emil. His room was neat but sparse. A bookshelf, mostly empty, a globe, quiet and still, and beside open letter. Its edges were worn from being held many times, though it had never been opened. Leora stepped gently through the crack in the window, the frost melting as she passed. Emil didn't look up, but his breath fogged in the air, and she could tell he had been holding something inside for a very long time. She sat quietly beside him, just at the edge of the blanket. "Hello, Emil," she whispered. His eyes blinked, but he said nothing. "I heard your dream," she said gently. Not a loud one, not one with colors or sounds, just a quiet wish, for something to feel warm again. He turned slightly, enough to glance toward the edge of the bed. Leora placed her hands over her heart. "I know it's hard. I know the world feels quieter than it used to." Emil looked at the unopened letter. Then, after a moment, he spoke. His voice was low and careful. "My sister used to write to me, every week, until she stopped." Leora nodded. "You miss her." Emil nodded too, but his chin quivered. "She moved far away. She said she'd come back, but she didn't. Then the letters stopped. I waited. Every day, I still wait." Leora looked at the letter beside him. "Do you know what it says?" she asked softly. "No," Emil whispered. "It came last spring, but I was afraid. What if she's not coming back?" Leora reached toward the letter but didn't touch it. "Sometimes," she said, "dreams wait inside unopened things, quiet places, like letters or hearts." Emil looked down. "I want to open it, but if I do and it says goodbye." "It may also say, 'I love you,'" Leora said, "or 'I'm thinking of you.' Sometimes the words we fear most are the ones that bring light back." The silence stretched again. Then Emil reached out, hands trembling, and lifted the letter. He opened it slowly, unfolding the paper with care. Leora didn't read over his shoulder. She watched his face instead. First came the smallest breath, then a tiny tear, then a soft smile. "She didn't wrote me a poem," he whispered, "about stars and snow, and she said, she misses me." Leora reached into her petal dress and drew out a tiny blue bloom, a frost flower from the far edge of the night garden. It shimmered faintly with the light of distant stars. She offered it to Emil. "Plant it in snow," she said. "It will remind you that even in the coldest seasons, something beautiful can grow." Emil took the flower carefully and placed it by the window, right where the moonlight touched the sill. "I thought my dream was too quiet," he said. "Quiet dreams still matter," Leora whispered. "They are the ones that wait, the ones that glow without needing to shine." And then, as gently as she came, she rose into the air and drifted toward the open window. Behind her, Emil stood quietly, the letter in one hand, the frost flower glowing beside him, and outside the snow seemed to fall a little softer, the silence not as heavy. In his heart, the quiet dream began to hum again, not loudly, but with warmth, a promise that even stillness could bloom. Leora flew on, the frost flower's soft memory still warming her wings. Snowflakes swirled gently around her, twinkling like sleepy stars as she passed through the quiet night. Each beat of her wings carried the whisper of a new dream, born from the silence Emil had unwrapped with courage. Above the trees, the wind shifted again, warmer now, scented faintly with honey and spring grass. A breeze brushed against Leora's cheeks like a giggle, playful and light. It brought with it something curious. Not a wish, exactly, but a question. A fluttering thought that pulsed in and out, like someone trying to understand what dreams even were. It tickled Leora's senses and made her smile. "This one is wondering," she whispered, following the wind. She drifted across hills just beginning to stretch from their winter sleep. Trees swayed lazily, their branches bare but hopeful. A river sang beneath the ice, its song waiting for sun. In a small, round cottage tucked near a hill of moss and stone, a child sat beneath a skylight, legs crossed, eyes wide open. He stared at the stars as if trying to catch their secrets in mid-blink. He didn't blink. He didn't move. He simply wondered. His name, Leora soon discovered, was Milo. Milo was full of quiet questions, not sad ones like Emil, or lost ones like Theo, or hidden ones like Elsie's. His were bright little flickers, like fireflies in a jar, dancing, bumping into each other, discussed never resting. What are dreams made of? Do stars fall asleep? Why do shadows change shape when I'm happy? Leora hovered at his window, amused and amazed. Milo's dream was still forming, like a story being written one word at a time. She slipped through the crack in the skylight and landed beside a stack of drawings on the floor, crayon sketches of animals made of clouds, trees with doors, and moons that sang lullabies. Milo noticed her instantly. His eyes, wide as saucers, blinked in surprise but not fear. "Are you a fairy?" he asked. "I am," Leora said gently, "a flower fairy from the night garden." "Is that where dreams live?" he asked, crawling closer, eyes shining. "I thought maybe they came from pillows, or maybe cookies. My grandma says good dreams come after warm tea." Leora laughed softly, like petals rustling in a breeze. "Dreams come from many places. Some from cookies, yes, some from laughter, others from the hush between heartbeats." Milo tilted his head. "Do you ever run out?" "Never," Leora said, "because dreams grow more when they're shared." He sat back on his heels, thoughtful. "I don't know what my dream is yet." "That's okay," said Leora. "Not all dreams arrive with a name." Milo brightened. "Plant one?" Leora reached into her pocket of petals and pulled out something she hadn't used before, a clear, tiny crystal seed. It shimmered, not with light, but with potential, a seed of wonder. She placed it in his open palm. "This is a maybe seed," she explained. "It grows with curiosity. You don't need to know what it will become. Just care for it. Ask it questions. Let it change." Milo held the seed close. "Can I show it pictures? Stories?" "Yes," said Leora. "Tell it everything." He nodded, eyes wide with determination. "I'm going to keep it in a box full of clouds and feathers, and I'll read it my books and draw with it." "It will love that," Leora whispered. Then, as she turned to leave, Milo tugged at her skirt of petals. "Wait," he said. "Can I ask you one more thing?" "Of course." "If you forget a dream, does it mean it never mattered?" Leora knelt beside him, her eyes soft. "No," she said. "It means it mattered so much it became part of you." Milo's mouth made a little "oh." He looked at the seed in his hand and then at the sky. "Then I hope this one becomes part of someone too." "It already has," Leora said. She rose into the air, her wings brushing the edges of his drawings as she passed. One sketch, a moon with wings, began to glow faintly. Outside, the wind caught her once more. And far behind, in the cottage with the skylight, Milo began to hum. Not a song he knew, but one that was growing, note by note, idea by idea. Because sometimes the most magical dreams don't arrive finished. They bloom from wonder. The night was wearing on gently, as though time itself had curled up to rest. Stars shimmered above like scattered petals, and the moon was a soft lantern floating through the heavens. Leora moved through the sky with steady wings, each beat carrying her deeper into the quiet world where dreams were being born. After visiting Theo, Elsie, Emil, and Milo, she felt something new blooming within her. A melody of emotions, like a lullaby shaped from their stories. Some dreams whispered, others waited. Some asked questions, but all of them reached for the same thing, to be seen, heard, and held with care. Now the wind tugged her southward, across valleys heavy with fog, and toward the edges of a wide, whispering lake. Mist hovered over the surface like breath, and small waves lapped at the shore with slow, sleepy sighs. There, nestled in the arms of tall reeds and moss-covered rocks, stood a wooden house on stilts. It was old and worn, with wind chimes that sang in slow circles and shutters that creaked with the rhythm of dreams. Inside, a girl named Nia sat by the window, her knees drawn to her chest. She didn't cry. She didn't fidget. She simply watched the water, watched the night, watched the stars blink on and off like tiny messages she couldn't yet read. Leora landed quietly on the railing of the porch. She could feel the difference in Nia's dream. It wasn't sharp like sorrow or soft like wonder. It was still, like a pond that had not been touched in many moons. Leora stepped through a gap in the wooden wall and came to rest on Nia's windowsill. The girl didn't look at her, but after a moment she spoke. "You're the fairy from the garden." Leora tilted her head. "Yes, you've seen me?" Nia nodded once. In a dream, a long time ago. Do you remember what you dreamed? Leora asked. I was small, Nia said, and the flowers talked. They told me to grow. Leora smiled gently. They still would. But I don't know how, Nia whispered. I don't know what I'm supposed to be. Her voice wasn't sad, it was quiet in a different way, like a shell lying on the shore, waiting for the tide to fill it. Leora fluttered down beside her. Not all dreams are about doing, she said softly. Some are about becoming. Nia finally turned to look at her. But how do I become something if I don't know what that is? Like this, said Leora. She reached into her dress and pulled out a moonbud, one of the rarest blossoms of the night garden. It was still closed, a pale blue spiral of petals wrapped tightly around a silver glow. She handed it to Nia. This flower only blooms in stillness, Leora explained. It doesn't chase the sun or reach for the sky. It waits, and when the moment is right, it opens. Nia held the moonbud carefully in both hands. So I don't have to rush? No, Leora said. Your dream is already unfolding, even if you can't see it yet. Nia looked down at the flower. It pulsed softly, like a heartbeat made of moonlight. I think I'm afraid to want too much, she said. What if I dream too big? Leora rested a hand on Nia's shoulder. Even the biggest trees began as a quiet seed, and the stars themselves were once wishes. Nia didn't answer right away. She stared into the night again, her eyes catching the shimmer of the lake. I want to feel brave, she said at last. Not loud, just brave enough to begin. Leora smiled. That is more than enough. And then, very gently, the moonbud in Nia's hand began to open. Its petals unfolded one by one, revealing a center that glowed with a color no name could hold, a mix of all the feelings Nia had kept tucked inside, her questions, her quiet strength, her longing to grow. She watched it bloom with wide, wondering eyes. I didn't know I was ready, she whispered. You were, Leora said. You simply needed stillness to hear it. Nia placed the moonbud on her windowsill, right where the lake's reflection met the stars. It would stay there, a reminder that stillness was not emptiness, but the beginning of something real. Leora rose once more, her wings catching the first breeze of dawn's whisper, and as she lifted into the sky, she felt the quiet hum of a dream that had not vanished, but waited patiently until it was gently called awake. The sky began to soften, just a little. The stars blinked slower, and the moon leaned low on the horizon, as if preparing to tuck itself into the clouds for sleep. But Leora was still awake, still carried by the gentle wings of dreams, with one more whisper tugging at her heart. This one came from the edge of a town where houses stood in neat rows, their windows glowing with bedtime warmth. Yet beyond them, where the grass turned wild and a single tree stood tall at the edge of a field, there sat a child alone beneath its branches. His name was Jonah. He was quiet, like the others, but different. He wasn't waiting for something to return. He wasn't wondering or afraid or holding in tears. He was holding his dream tightly, on purpose. It was hidden, locked, wrapped in silence like a box with no key. Leora fluttered above him, uncertain for the first time in many nights. Dreams usually called out, even the shy ones. But Jonah's dream had no sound at all. It was buried deep, beneath layers of protection. She landed on the lowest branch of the tree and watched him. He sat with his back against the trunk, arms around his knees, eyes fixed on the stars. The grass didn't move. The breeze didn't touch him. His breath was slow and steady. Leora waited. After a long time, he whispered, I know you're there. She stepped down from the branch, her wings folding gently behind her. I wasn't sure you'd let me near, she said softly. Jonah didn't move. Most don't try. Leora sat beside him in the grass. The tree above them rustled gently, as if it remembered lullabies long forgotten. I can't hear your dream, she said. I don't want it to be heard, Jonah replied. It's not a good one. There are no bad dreams, Leora said. Only dreams that are hurting. Jonah looked down at his knees. Mine is loud. It makes things too bright. I try to hide it. Leora nodded slowly. Sometimes brightness can feel too big, especially when the world prefers quiet. I see things, Jonah whispered. Colors and sound, feelings and numbers. I remember too much. It makes everything spin. Leora closed her eyes, sensing the storm he carried. So many thoughts moving all at once, like a garden blooming too quickly, vines tangling before they had time to climb. And you keep it inside? She asked. He nodded. People say I think too much, feel too much. Leora gently reached into her pocket and pulled out something rare. It was not a flower, not a seed, not a shimmer. It was a prism, small, smooth, and clear as raindrops caught in morning light. She placed it on the grass between them. "What's that?" Jonah asked. "It's a listening prism," said Leora. "It doesn't speak, it doesn't judge, it simply reflects what it's given and lets the light pass through." Jonah picked it up carefully. As he held it to the sky, the stars split into 100 tiny patterns across the field. He blinked. "It shows things, how I see them." Leora smiled. "Exactly. It doesn't ask your thoughts to be smaller. It just helps you shape them." He looked at the prism a long time. "I always thought I had to hide, to make things simpler." "You don't," said Leora. "Your dream doesn't need to shrink. It needs to shine." Jonah placed the prism beside his heart. "Will anyone else see what I see?" "Maybe not in the same way," Leora said, "but they'll feel it, if you let them." He closed his eyes and breathed in. For the first time, the grass rustled around him, and beneath them, in the roots of the tree, something stirred, a tiny flicker of silver, a dream beginning to rise. It wasn't loud, it wasn't bright, it was steady and strong. Jonah looked up at Leora. "Can I keep the prism?" "It's yours," she whispered. "Use it when the world feels too heavy. Let it bend the light for you." He tucked it into his pocket. They sat together a little while longer, the stars spinning above like thoughts finally let loose into the sky. Then Leora stood, her wings glowing faintly in the soft beginning of dawn. "You're not too much," she said. "You're exactly enough." Jonah smiled, just a little, and Leora lifted into the sky once more, carrying with her the calm of a storm quieted, not silenced, but understood. The sky was turning silver now. The stars faded one by one like soft candlelights being blown out by the hush of morning. Birds began to stir, their songs still tucked beneath their wings, and the trees stretched their shadows long across the land. Night was folding itself into the promise of a new day. Leora flew slower now. Her wings were tired, not from weariness, but from fullness. Each dream she had touched, each child she had visited, had given her something gentle and bright to carry, like blossoms tucked into a basket woven from moonlight. The night garden awaited her return. As she flew across the familiar hills and streams, the misty veil began to rise once more. The flowers, sensing her presence, swayed lightly even in their sleep. The hush roses lifted their petals, and the moon lilies opened with a shimmer of silver, their glow soft and steady. Lumi was waiting at the edge of the garden, his pearl wings fluttering with joy. "You're back," he whispered, fluttering up to meet her. "I am," Leora said, landing softly beside him, "and so many dreams are with me." The Watcher of Forgotten Dreams rose from his resting place beneath the dream willow, his starlit eyes calm and kind. "The garden has grown," he said, "even while you were away." Leora looked around, and it was true. New flowers had bloomed, strange and beautiful ones. There were frost flowers, moonbuds, maybe seeds in full leaf, and even a single shimmer lily with petals the color of thought. Dreams planted by children's hearts, dreams watered by hope and wonder and quiet bravery. "Tell us," Lumi asked. "What did you find?" Leora smiled, sitting down in the circle of softest moss where stories were always told. The flowers leaned in, the fireflies hovered gently, and even the trees seemed to hold their breath. "I found a boy who held sadness in silence, but dared to open a letter and plant a frost flower," she began. "A girl who danced again to a song sung only in memory. A dream that pulsed with quiet questions, another wrapped in stillness. I found brightness hiding beneath the branches of a tree, waiting for someone to say, 'You are not too much.'" Lumi's eyes glistened. "They're all so different." "Yes," Leora said, "but they all reached out in their own way. Some whispered, some waited, some wandered." The Watcher nodded slowly. "And you listened." Leora reached into her dress and one by one placed the tokens she had gathered into the center of the moss ring. Theo's softly glowing seed, Elsie's music box bloom, Emil's frostflower crystal, Milo's clear maybe seed, Naya's moonbud, and Jonah's prism. The garden sighed, a ripple of warmth passing through it like the first breath of spring. "These dreams," Leora whispered, "are now part of us. They will grow here. They will guide other dreams home." The flowers nodded in their own silent way, their petals brushing each other with kindness. Suddenly, a hush rose began to hum. Then a giggle daisy sparkled. Then the moon lilies began to chime. The night garden was singing. Not loudly, not wildly, but with the softest, most comforting sound, a lullaby made of dreams. Each note carried a memory, a hope, a feeling. It drifted into the wind, wrapping around the world like a blanket of light. Leora closed her eyes and listened. She could feel the children, still asleep, their breathing steady, their dream seeds glowing faintly in their rooms. Each one now held a thread that stretched back to the night garden, a quiet connection that would remain even when they awoke. And someday, maybe not soon, but when the time was right, they would return. Not all at once, maybe not even in person, but in feeling, in spirit, in dreams passed forward. Because dreams, once shared, never truly fade. They grow, they guide, they bloom. Leora lay back on the moss, her wings folded beneath her, and let the soft music of the garden carry her into rest. Lumi curled beside her, the watcher keeping guard, and the fireflies twinkling gently above like a new constellation forming in the quiet sky. And as the sun touched the edge of the horizon, casting gold across the sleeping world, the night garden glowed with all the dreams it had gathered. The flower fairy had returned. The garden was whole, and somewhere in the waking world, a child smiled in their sleep.